So this is the session on Girls' Guide to Entering the Workplace with Your Best Foot Forward, which is really for all of our young attendees, but also older attendees who are looking at, some steps in terms of improving their own standing at the workplace, in terms of dealing with certain issues. So I believe it's really going to be, valuable for everybody, even though we've called it a girls' guide and not a women's guide. So let me just introduce our speakers. And again, like you've been sharing on social media all day, please continue to use the hashtag WICA2020 and also tag us at Women's Wear. First, I have with me Devapriya Khanna. Devapriya is a brand and business strategist, a globally certified leadership consultant, and an international speaker. Through her Ventures 212 Degrees Brand Lab, a brand consultancy, and connects us a community for entrepreneurs and executives, she empowers corporate and business leaders to grow their income, influence, and impact. And welcome, Devapriya. Lovely to have you with us today. Thank you so much for joining us. And in her pre-entrepreneurial career, she's dedicated over 18 years to the corporate world as a consumer marketing and branding specialist, building power brands and leading global teams. Great to have you with us today.
Thank you, Aparna. Yes, thank you. I'm here, and thank you for having me on this forum and for taking me way back in time, because it's been many years since I was entering the workforce, and we didn't have people like panels like this to guide us through it. So it's amazing to be here.
The next speaker I have with us is Anand, Director Communications, Partnerships and Career Services, Krea University. Kala comes with significant experience within the education industry, working in strategic roles at major international private education companies as well as government, like the government of Singapore and the government of Australia. Through her 15-year senior professional tenure, she has provided advisory services to international universities and government agencies, enabling them to expand their global footprint and forge sustainable partnerships. And Kala holds an MBA from SPJIMR India and a professional diploma in digital marketing from DMI Ireland. Welcome, Kala. Lovely to have you with us.
Thank you, everyone, and thanks for having me. And I'm definitely looking forward to the next 30 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person we have with us is Rubina Khan, Marketing Manager at Hematoglogy APAC, Novartis. Rubina has been a marketing professional with a forte in specialty pharma, and with a career spanning over 12 years, she's led award-winning initiatives in market shaping, brand launches, as well as life cycle management for 3 big pharmas such as Novartis, Roche, and AbbVie, in addition to other Indian firms. And having completed her MBA from Uni of Pune in 2008, she climbed the corporate ladder to today being a marketing manager with Novartis APAC Pharmaceuticals. And her passion for her work is fueled by positive feedback and success stories from her team as well as customers. Thank you, Rubina. Lovely to have you with us.
Thank you, Aparna, and hello, everybody. Hello to all the audience. Looking forward to our next 30 minutes of interaction.
Our final speaker who's leading the panel today is Sneha Banerjee, who leads content partnerships at Dailyhunt and is a student mentor. Sneha is a journalist and media professional who worked as a journalist, media investment associate, and today on media partnerships with India's largest content aggregator, Dailyhunt. As a journalist, she covered North American equity markets, startups, and tech companies, and after that worked with a philanthropic fund that invests in independent digital news startups. Sneha was also selected as one of the 25 women mentors under Facebook's Going Online as Leaders program to impart mobile literacy to young teenage girls in rural West Bengal. And Sneha is an engineer and also completed a postgrad in journalism. She's currently trying to pursue online courses in public policy and international communications. Welcome, Sneha, and I will now lead the panel over to you.
Thank you so much, Aparna, and hello, everyone. Just as Devapriya rightly mentioned, I want to start off this session by asking each one of you to take us back to your first work experience as an intern or as an employee, and what was your biggest takeaway or the most memorable memory from that experience that you had?
I might go first, Rubina, and then happy to hear from you. I think, interesting question. I mean, it's really, I think my first formal job was 25 years ago. So recalling that is going to, jog my memory a fair bit. That was after my MBA. But I'd been working since I was 16. So ever since I was in school through to college, I always decided that I wanted to keep working, whether that was, was hosting on TV, I was comparing on stage, I was working in some kind of, public service trips all the time. So I kind of have a very strong memory of the first formal job. So I was, I think, always prepared for a workplace. That kept me prepared from when I was 16. And because I'd met with a number of teams, importantly, I think the experience of having started working at a very young age and traveling across India, I kind of got comfortable with uncomfortable situations. I think that was really an important bit that I learned through the time. And but then coming into a formal workplace, it was in advertising. And really the bits around daily follow-up, the weekly meetings, and working across department, that was a new experience. And if I have to go back to that time, I don't think I joined with saying in 5 years I want to be this, in 10 years I want to be this. I think I was more eager. I wasn't ambitious, so that didn't make me nervous. So I was just curious and I was eager because I always wanted to be there. And I had some fantastic mentors who I stay in touch with every day. So I think that would kind of summarize my first work experience.
Now we come back to mentors. So Rubina, Devapriya, your first work experience.
So I think that's the idea of going next. Sorry, Devapriya, I started just before you. The reason I wanted to jump in next is because, Khanna, thanks a lot for sharing your experience. I actually connect with that a lot because it was very similar for me. I've been formally working for the last 12 years. However, my first job started after I finished my 12th. So pretty much the same age of 16, 17 years. I started off with doing part-time jobs and then slowly climbed up to more permanent roles. But if I jog my memory back and I go back to my first job, there's one thing that I have realized very consistently. Of course, I always just wanted to learn more. My goal was not the money. My goal was not the growth. It was more of what different can I do? What more can I do? What can I learn? How can it take me different places? And surprisingly, the best and the worst managers I have had are women. The diversity across that has been very startling. And I have learned a lot from them. And that's where I still continue to be in that phase where I continue to learn. I continue to grow rather than focus on certain specific things. That has driven me to a very large extent. And knowing that a woman has inspired me to be my better self helps me become a better manager in my own stead.
Right. It's lovely.
Yeah. I can totally relate to both Kala and Rubina. So like Kala, my career started way back, even 25 years before today. And so many years ago, but the memories and the feelings are still crystal clear. I was joining my dream company, an FMCG multinational giant, as a management trainee. So I was literally like ticking every box, and it was just unfolding in front of me all these dreams that I had when I was I was coming up. It was pretty much a conventional upbringing where you did your MBA, and if you're a marketing person, you joined one of these big FMCG companies, and you were supposed to be really all set. I was over the moon at having manifested my dreams, but I was also filled with trepidation and anxiety about whether I would be able to deliver and if I would be accepted internally. So it was just like a melting pot of so many emotions and so much of anxiety and worry initially. What I would like to say at this point is that it's important to ignore the imposter syndrome, and that really sets in pretty much at the beginning when you're at crossroads and you're about to make that jump and step into uncharted waters. You sometimes wonder whether you really deserve to be there and you deserve everything that's coming your way. I think the whole point would be to just go ahead and believe in yourself. If you have been selected by an organization, then there's a reason why that's happened. So just go ahead with that. Secondly, I would say that at this stage, it's all about making the right choices. So, like Rubina, you also mentioned, it's important to get this. You don't need to chase money at this stage. It's important to build your brand. And at this stage, your brand is really the brand name of the company that you're working for, plus the knowledge base, that you come with, and your integrity and your attitude towards work.
Right.
So importance of making the right choices right at the beginning would give you a jump start and a great foundation.
Right, you brought about the point about building your brand, and we are in 2020 today, and someone starting out, a young girl starting out with her career, how early does she need to be prepared to enter the workforce? And what are the, you mentioned about brand building, what are the steps that one can take to build their individual brands? Considering all four of us are related to communications, marketing fields, but just overall, what are the steps that a young girl today needs to do to prepare herself for the competitive world out there?
Okay,
yeah.
Okay, I could go. I think, it's kind of such, just suggestions. It depends really on a lot of other aspects, the social structures you come from, and a lot of those come into play. But I think if I could say something, it would be about, make sure that you always come about as staying curious. Importantly, stay relevant with the changing times, with what's happening, and constantly be relevant, and never be afraid to push outside your comfort zone. Right. So that's really, important. And I also think a lot of women, young girls that I tend to meet, I want to tell them your first job does not define your career. Your first job is not, I mean, we all started somewhere, we've all ended up somewhere. Your first job does not. So don't get too caught up in that whole thing. And also don't move with blinkers, because it's not like you come in and you look at everything as a vertical movement. Sometimes you got to remove it and think that growth can also happen laterally. So don't get caught in that single focus. Try to be flexible. And I think as women, we've got some inherent attributes, right? Which is the multitasking comes to us naturally. The ability to, have that hindsight, the vision, the intuitive thinking comes to us quite naturally. Empathy comes to us quite naturally. So how do you use some of this, which is really not a weakness, which is fantastic strengths? And how do you look at things more laterally? And I think that is something that I would always say, that stay relevant. Always don't think that you should contribute into one space. I kind of started in advertising. I always wanted to be in advertising since I was 16. But I quit advertising very early because I realized I wanted to be in the creative area. I wanted to be communicating with people. I wanted to meet people from all backgrounds. And I assumed for some strange reason it only happens in advertising. But then I realized very quickly I could do this anywhere else. So I think pushing outside the comfort zone, in my current role, I handle 3 verticals, right? So that's interesting that it's lateral movement. And hence each day is something new. And when I have some of my young managers, I tell them, get up and just think about what you can do new and where you can contribute differently in the organization. I think this would be just some of those things.
So basically, we've navigated through sectors. Devapriya, I just wanted to specifically ask you this question, because we've spoken offline about building your personal brand, because as we all, I looked up all our backgrounds, we've not really worked at one company for a very long time. So how important is building your personal brand early in your career today, and how do you go about doing this?
Yes, so I can't stress upon this enough. Is that there is no it's never too soon to start building your brand. Your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. So what is it that you want people to, your workplace colleagues, your bosses, your teams, what is it that what is it that you want them to think about you, and what is it that they want, what is the skill set that you want to be bringing to the table? It's not always about faking it till you make it. It's great to have role models. It's great to emulate people, but I honestly would stress on authenticity and having faith in your authenticity and credibility. So your personal brand essentially is a sum total of your reputation and your credibility, and it is what you carry with you from one organization to the other. And even when you decide to give up your corporate role and become an entrepreneur like I have, the asset that you take away is your personal brand.
Right.
And your brand exists whether you like it or not, because at every point in time, pretty much like a product or a company brand, you're creating a set of expectations and experiences in the minds of your stakeholders, right?
Right.
How is it that you're making people feel about you? So one really needs to be cognizant about one's personal brand. Gone are the days when you can say that my skills will take me that far, because today we're at a stage when most people come with that skill set. If your CV has been shortlisted, if you've been sort of taken in for that role, then your functional expertise has been ticked off and you've been selected basis that. Now, having come to that stage, what is it that's going to take you to the next level? And that really is your personal brand. It's that extra X, that extra degree.
Right.
And a lot of I see even college students investing so much time in building their personal brand.
So this starts as early as college level.
Yes, it does. It does. I have an 18-year-old going to college, going to university. She's leaving in 3 days, and we worked a lot on her, putting her communication and putting her profile together. So it starts as early as that, and definitely when you're entering the workplace, you need to be aware. We've all done it, Kala, Rubina, Sneha, we've all done it. At our stages, we've done it instinctively. We've managed our careers in a certain way, instinctively preserving our reputation, building certain values, and working on our strengths. But today, it's kind of systematized. It's given a name called personal branding, and there are people who help you on that journey.
Rubina, would you like to add to that? And what have you done? What do you think, according to you, is the best brand building mechanisms out there? For your sector or just for the work you're doing?
So I want to what Devapriya said, that the woman has to be prepared from the moment she decides to enter the workforce. It does not matter whether it's a corporate workforce or it is an entrepreneurship workforce, but she has to be prepared for it from the word go.
Right.
The second thing that's extremely important is that, yes, we as women itself, multitask, we have a lot of capabilities. However, an important thing to remember is that our world to quite an extent is dominated by men. And for every woman who wants to enter this world, she has to remember not to buckle into pressure. There's going to be a lot of pressure. When you are judged by what's written on your CV, you're also judged with a lot of other factors. You're judged by your age, you're judged by your looks, you're judged by how you talk, how you dress, multiple things.
Right.
All of which, however, make up your brand. How you talk, how you dress, everything visual, non-visual about you, how you've written your CV makes your brand. And once you've done that, there's a lot of pressure for you to be better than the men. You don't just have to prove yourself in your work, you have to prove yourself every single moment to be better than the guy sitting next to you. And that's also where it's extremely important for you to maintain that brand. You build it, you maintain it, don't buckle under pressure. You make sure that people who matter know you. People who matter acknowledge your work, acknowledge your presence, and know that you are a fighter and that you're not going to back down. That also becomes very essential in terms of building your personal brand. And I also believe that for a woman, having a personal brand and identity is very important within as well as outside the workforce. We need to be more than someone's daughter, someone's wife, someone's sister, or someone's mother. I need to be who I am. And that itself drives me every single day to make sure my brand remains and I stand up to it.
Right, definitely. We spoke about mentorship earlier, and you think that workplaces today, is there enough mentoring done for young women coming into work, and does that really help in the overall journey of how the career of the person goes ahead?
If I can jump in here, maybe. I believe it's very organization specific. Not many organizations believe in mentoring in the first place, not just mentoring for women. They just don't believe that newcomers need to be mentored. They believe that you start off with an induction, a little bit of training, and the person is set to go. But mentorship becomes extremely essential for both the genders. I am lucky to right now be with an organization that believes in mentoring, and that's where we have like a buddy system where for the first 6 months, every newcomer has a buddy. And you can ask anything and everything from that buddy, from where to go for lunch to where to find a file to approval processes, etc. Mentorship becomes extremely important, and that's where for every woman today who wants to join the workforce, one of the things I believe is, please look up a little bit in terms of the ethos of the company you're choosing to work for. Look up how much they believe in uh, bringing women to work. What are the ethics when it comes to maintaining the work-life balance for the women? How do they support the women who have joined them? And that's where you might be able to make the choice between a company that will mentor you versus making a mistake.
Right. But I want to kind of ask Devapriya this, and then I'll ask Kala also. Devapriya, how do you're running your own organization today, and how does a young girl who comes fresh into the workplace, how does she go about picking the right mentor? Does she have to pick up a mentor early, in her career, or do we give it some time? How does the process of picking the right mentor work?
So, for a young girl entering the workforce for the first time, it's very difficult for her to pick a mentor because she doesn't really know the lay of the land. She doesn't know who to trust, who comes with what she needs to learn and who she needs to learn from. So, I believe that the organization should have a mentorship process in place. I think there are a lot of companies that are doing that very well now. I know because we consult with some of them, and we're putting mentorship programs into place. People are proactively thinking. But what I would also say is that outside of a formal structure, I think it's the responsibilities of the team leaders, of the functional heads, and also of the HR department to assign buddies, to assign mentors, and so that you watch out for a certain person. I see this trend of multiple mentors coming into place these days. So one, fresh typically or a trainee would have multiple mentors. I believe that works out pretty well as well.
Right.
In some of the organizations that I've worked for, we've not only had a functional mentor, but we've also had a cross-functional mentor who's guided a newcomer along certain other paths. Not just about the functional expertise, but also about how the organization works, how networking happens, and how generally how to navigate your path.
Right. I'm kind of, I want to kind of shift focus to a new generation first generation of women coming from a family, joining the workforce, because I've personally mentored young rural young girls who were the first ones to actually complete their education. So they are aspirational and they want to join the workforce. I know that Kala, we spoke offline, we kind of discussed about how these women also need mentorship, but probably of a different kind. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think some of that mentorship has to start even before they enter the workforce. And I think it starts with, I think it's all the input, right? So I'd like to see, for instance, the social structures around some of these girls support them, right? The families that support them. So these kids not only have to find, by the time they find workplace mentors, they have to find mentors within the family itself. Today, forget the first generation, but even in my own place, I can be a mentor. But if I'm not a mentor enough for my daughter who's 23 years old, and she doesn't find what I do inspirational, then there is a mismatch. And I have to first be the mentor. The social structures have to be the mentor. And I also think that, for education institutions, like what we do in Krea, right? A large part of our students come from these really small towns and villages, and we are a philanthropic institution, and many of them are first generation college goers. They come from the really small towns. And what we try and do is we have this twin track mentorship program right in the college. They have a group mentor, they have an academic mentor, they have a non-academic mentor. And this mentorship is important because you elicit them asking the right questions. And it's important as well for them to see, to observe as well, and you kind of build some of that relationship. So I think the input into some of this much before the workplace, the responsibility clearly lies with some of the institutions and colleges, and somehow we don't see that preparation as much. They just put into the workplace and then they're left at that point. But if the mentorship actually starts much earlier for some of these girls, I think they'll be much prepared. We've got a formal mentorship program, a work study program, and employability skills program for some of these girls, so that they don't feel left out when they're actually out there, when they come to the workplace and they meet somebody from a city. So I'm more in terms of putting the responsibility equally to prior workplace, and then make it ease out there. The only other thing I would add about mentorship is also an advice to young girls is, one is you can tell an organization to have all sorts of programs, but if there are young girls entering the workforce, observe people around you. You will gravitate to certain leadership styles. That's natural. So the company might give you a mentor, but I have always gravitated to specific leadership styles and adopted mentors accordingly.
All right. I see Aparna's already.
Hi, yes, you have about just 2 minutes left. So
okay, before I ask my last question, I think we should take up the question that's come via the audience. Yes. So Ria Pascal has asked, we always hear that hard work alone is not enough. It's also important to let others know about your work. How can we influence others, and especially seniors, for this? Anyone would like to take that?
I could just comment as well on that, only because I think, Devapriya touched very well in terms of the personal branding bit. And this is all about that branding bit, right? So one is, you don't have to go tom-tomming about it. And this is where I said, contribute into other parts of the organizations outside your function. And that's really important to get out of that comfort zone. And then you have to somehow become a part of the brain trust. Often in all organizations, there's this little people who kind of reach out to you for interests, for opinions, and how you're able to do that is really important. I think it's about not so much talking about your work as much as talking about how you may have contributed to somebody else's work. And I think that earns you a lot of respect in workplace.
Yeah. So very quickly, I'll just add is that, my advice is that do not forget to network. And networking isn't really a harsh or a dirty word. It's not something that's supposed to be uncomfortable. Networking, you find your own style of networking. Every now and then I get people coming to me to help them build their personal brands and get advice. And they say that I'm an introvert, so I can't do this. So it's very important to understand. It's very important to understand that personal branding or networking is not a me kind of exercise. It's not an exercise in self-promotion. It is about communicating your expertise and the value you bring and your relevance to your stakeholders. In this case, your internal stakeholders, which are your colleagues and your bosses and your new environment. So a very practical tip is that make sure your LinkedIn is up to date, and interact on LinkedIn. It's not something that you don't really need to sort of tom-tom, or you don't really need to go out and start meeting people. For the introverts, I think the digital tools which are free are absolutely superb, like the company intranet. Take up some volunteer position. Visibility is important, but do it subtly. Make it a point to meet somebody new every week. Ask people out, for coffee. And this isn't something that will come naturally, especially when you're trying to settle into the new environment and you're trying to learn your roles and your goals. On top of that, you need to do this, but it is very important, and there's no better way to build your interpersonal skills and expand your network. And you'll be surprised by how much more confident and outgoing you'll become just by doing this.
Right. And the introvert extrovert issue is not really a big challenge. It can be dealt with.
Absolutely, because there are different strokes for different folks. That you don't. It's not like one big brush that paints in one color. So figure out, be true to your authentic self. Figure out what works for you and do just that, and focus on your strengths, and just about manage your weaknesses such that they don't become a stumbling block to your career progress.
Aparna, do we have?
Thank you so much, Sneha.
Sorry, Aparna, are we running too late?
We're running a little late, so you'll have to keep it very crisp.
I will. Just to address the part of how do we influence our seniors, a quick advice for the women who are newcomers. Don't forget to ask for help, because every time you reach out to someone for help, it becomes way. Secondly, don't also forget to share your experiences. I realize in my experience that every time I ask for help, as well as when someone asks me for help, I get an opportunity to talk about what I'm doing, what mistakes I've made, and where I have excelled. And that really helps people to come to know where you stand, your capabilities, and everyone in the know-how about you. That's it from me.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much, Sneha, Rubina, Kala, and Devapriya. It was such a pleasure having you with us. Whether we're just putting our foot forward in the industry or we've been there for 5 years or 10 years, I think these are all things that we can always remember. Like many of you pointed out, things like networking, making your presence felt, all of these don't just happen. We need to make them happen. And it doesn't necessarily, what the other thing I really liked was that it doesn't mean being an extrovert, because we're not all the same. We don't have to have the same personalities, but we can still do it in our own ways. I think that was a very, very valuable learning. Thank you all so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure having you with us.
It's alright. Yeah, it's alright.